Hello everyone, back to you in today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. For today's second video, it takes us into the start of February. So a cold and perhaps increasingly wintry flavour to the weather next week from this morning's model output. There's a lot of uncertainty about next week's weather. It looks like the temperatures are going to stay quite cold. We're pulling in the air from the north, and low pressure is going to be going on a northwest-southeast track, but may bring us some wintry weather. And I'll talk more about that as we progress through the video. I'm going to start off with what's happening with stratosphere, though, because I haven't talked about that for a few days. We've pretty much started to unravel the sudden stratospheric warming now in terms of the stratosphere at the top of the atmosphere. But of course, now we're waiting for that tropospheric response. We may already be having a partial tropospheric response. I'll have a little bit about that for the first part of the video. But before I do anything else, I'll say a big thank you to our latest PayPal donor. So I've had a donation from Lloyd Garl. A big thank you to Lloyd Garl for becoming a donor for Gaz Weather Vids once again. If you would like to join Lloyd and become a donor for Gaz Weather Vids, then all you need to do is come to the gazweathervids.me PayPal page and you sign to your PayPal account, and then I'm on that page right now. You just give whatever one-off donation you would like to Gaz Weather Vids, and by doing that you're helping us to pay for our website, and we'll give you a mention in the videos. We'll say thank you very much, as long as you want, but if you'd rather stay anonymous, then just leave a little note with your donation to let us know. So big thank you to all of the PayPal donors. Special thank you to Lloyd Garl for becoming a donor for Gaz Weather Vids today. This is Patreon, of course, so if you'd rather become a patron for Gaz Weather Vids, then all you need to do is come to the Gaz Weather Vids Patreon page. Again, we link to both PayPal and Patreon on all pages at Gaz Weather Vids and in the description at YouTube. So you just come to Gaz Weather Vids Patreon page and you sign up for a Patreon account, and you can become a patron. And by doing that, it's like an ongoing monthly donation. It can be anything as little as $1 a month upwards. And again, you're helping us to pay for Gaz Weather Vids. We're primarily ads funded and will be remaining, so there's no danger of anything going behind a paywall or making the content exclusive or anything like that. We're just asking for an extra revenue stream because ad yields are dropping year by year. So a big thank you to all of the patrons. We've got 60 patrons so far. Huge response, and totally blown away by that. I was never expecting anything like this when I started with PayPal and Patreon back in June. So again, huge thank you to the patrons, huge thank you to PayPal donors, and a special thank you to today's donor, Lloyd Garl. Right, next thing to do is show you a few snow pics that again have been shared with us. So this is Gaz Weather Vids Twitter page. So there are various ways you can have your pics shared in the videos. You can either share them on the Gaz Weather Vids social media pages, Facebook and Twitter. We link to all of those pages in the description at YouTube and also on all pages of Gaz Weather Vids. So that's one of the ways. You can email them to us at gazweathervids@gmail.com or share them in the comment box. These are the pics that have been shared with us for today. So this is from Owen Griffiths. I think we showed Owen's pictures yesterday. This is in Oxfordshire, gradual thaw of the snow there, but still looks like it's laying pretty deep in Owen's garden in Oxfordshire. Let's carry on down. This is from Andrew Atterwill. So this isn't a particularly snowy picture, but gorgeous sort of sunrise in Earlham Wetland, which I think is in Norfolk. So a frosty old scene there as the sun is rising over Norfolk. This is from our good friend James Ackrill, of course, the keeper of the solar tracker and also our analog specialist. So James tries something he's never tried before, photographing freezing bubbles, and is quite pleased with the results. Absolutely amazing picture. That looks like almost like a snow globe. Quite amazing how James managed to photograph that. Let's carry on down. This is from SDT, the Tuckmeister. This again, St Albans, and this is heavy snow from the other night in St Albans. Proper snowy old night there. Moving down to this one. This is from Katrine in South Ockendon. Frosty Garden in South Ockendon. That one is from Christian Morris, Deep Snow, on the way up to Penwythan in the Brecon Beacons. Deep snow cover there in the Brecon Beacons. Craig posted this one, or shared this one, still seeing showers out to sea a couple of miles out of the Yorkshire coast. So those snow showers were peppering the East Coast yesterday. That's from Adrian Major. Snow in Stroud, Gloucestershire. So a bit of a snowy scene over there in Gloucestershire. This one is from Blue LT YouTube. And icy looking road there. Very icy, snowy sort of road going on there. I'm not sure where that's taken from. It looks like it's from Preston. That's where we're going to be looking at with the ensembles part of the video very shortly. So snowy afternoon in Preston the other day. I think that takes us down to all of those. And then we've also got a picture that's been shared, emailed to us. So this is emailed by Anthony Jones, and this is looking at Lask Edge in the Staffordshire moorlands. Yesterday afternoon, freezing cold, quite deep snow cover, and the temperature, Anthony told me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, was only -2 degrees Celsius. Very, very wintry, frozen, snow covered afternoon in the Staffordshire moorlands. So if you would like your picture shared in videos when we get time to do it, then you can email them to us like Anthony did at gazweathers@gmail.com. You can share them on Facebook or Twitter, or post them in the comment box at Gazweathers. We're always happy to feature your pictures when we get the chance. Big thank you to everyone for that. Now, this is quite an interesting tweet that I saw yesterday. This is from Wanstead Weather, at Wanstead Metro. I'll leave the link in the description at YouTube to Wanstead Weather's Twitter page. So this is showing the drop in temperature that we've had in the east of London. I think it's probably fairly representative of most parts of the country. If you was to look at a graph like this, I think this would be fairly representative of most parts of the country. So this is the mean temperature for East London during January. So you see that a mild start to the month, of course, very mild in the first half of the month. And then from around the 16th of January onwards, we've gone colder. So a drop in the temperature taking place there, and probably likely to continue, except for the odd day or two, it could be a bit milder coming up on Friday and Saturday. Probably likely to continue for the time being. And Wanstead Weather says that this graph shows the mean temperature in London, in East London, has fallen away nicely since the 16th. That would be 15 days after the southern stratospheric warming. Of course, the southern stratospheric warming began over Christmas, but it didn't actually get into the North Pole and start reversing the zonal winds until around the new year. So, quite interesting that although we haven't seen huge amounts of northern blocking yet, and we may not do, but we certainly at this stage haven't seen huge amounts of northern blocking, nevertheless, a couple of weeks after this southern stratospheric warming, it does look as though quite a significant and substantial pattern change has taken place, which has certainly lowered the temperature quite a lot. Now, no one can say definitively 100% that this is down to the southern stratospheric warming. Nobody can say that this wouldn't have happened anyway if we hadn't had the southern stratospheric warming. But a couple of weeks after the SSW, we see that the pattern has shifted quite a lot, and the temperature has certainly lowered quite a lot too, and that looks like going to be sustained certainly for the next couple of weeks. So very interesting that although again we haven't seen massive amounts of northern blocking at this point, something certainly has changed within the atmospheric setup to pull the temperature down quite a lot from where we was like into December and the opening days of January. Now, this is how things are looking in the stratosphere at 10 HPA over the North Pole right now. So we're actually a little bit colder than average now. We've seen quite a big drop in the temperature at 10 HPA. That's the sudden stratospheric warming, of course, occurring at the end of December. And since then, you can't maintain those temperature levels indefinitely. Since then, we've been seeing this black line dropping all the time, day by day. It's gradually been lowering. And now we are actually under average, or colder than average, at 10 HPA right now underneath the grey line, which is the trend line for this time of the year. If we go a bit lower down to 30 HPA, which is a bit closer to the troposphere, we're still quite warm at 30 HPA, still quite a bit warmer than average. So that decline in the temperature that's taking place at 10 HPA hasn't yet got down to 30 HPA. There we are still in really quite a warm setup, way above the grey line. And so the decline in the temperature at 10 HPA obviously won't be impacting the troposphere at this stage. We're still waiting to see whether we get a true tropospheric response in terms of northern blocking to this sudden stratospheric warming. And it can take a few weeks, so sometimes it'll happen very quickly. You'll get a big block of high pressure setting up quickly. Other times, it'll take quite a long time. And I think people forget that in 2013, although we had the sudden stratospheric warming in early January 2013, we did have almost an immediate response to that. It went cold within around a week, 10 days of that sudden stratospheric warming. It wasn't really till March that we got true northern blocking and set up a severe spell of weather during March 2013. So that took a long time, actually, from the sudden stratospheric warming to get the real tropospheric response, which was all that masses of northern blocking. Now, I'm not saying we're going to have anything like that this year. We probably won't have a repeat of that this year. But it does emphasise the idea that although you can get blocking quite quickly, and although you can change the pattern quite quickly, the peak of the blocking can happen quite a long time after the sudden stratospheric warming. So we're going to keep looking to see signs of that northern blocking. Bearing in mind, sometimes you don't get any response. You don't always have a guaranteed response in the troposphere to a sudden stratospheric warming. So the winter of 0102 is a great example of that, 2001, 2002, when a big sudden stratospheric warming happened at the end of December, and there was no tropospheric response at all. I think we've had at least a partial response to this sudden stratospheric warming. I think the change that has taken place that we saw there with that temperature chart from One Step Weather, I think that is evidence that we have had a partial response so far to this sudden stratospheric warming, and we're just going to wait and see whether that continues, whether we continue to have a partial response, whether it fades away, or whether the response actually gets more and more extreme from a blocking perspective. Now, the zonal winds at 10 HPA have started to go back into their westerly phase now. So you remember when we had the sudden stratospheric warming, this is from weatheriscool.com, by the way, when we had the sudden stratospheric warming, the zonal winds went into reverse and stayed in reverse for quite a long time. But that's where we are right now. We're just a little bit above this all-important zero line just here. And so this tells us that the zonal winds have turned westerly. Once again, the zonal winds have turned zonal. So again, we're just unravelling that the effects of that sudden stratospheric warming in the stratosphere. But we're waiting for the true effects, perhaps, to appear in the troposphere. This is from the University of Berlin. It's showing how things in the stratosphere are at the moment at 10 and 30 HPA in terms of the zonal winds again. So once more, we see that the zonal winds are going to be going back into their westerly phase over the next week to 10 days. We're around there now, just ever so slightly going westerly with the zonal winds, but they're forecast to strengthen those zonal winds, although still a lot weaker than they were before the sudden stratospheric warming. That's where it was before the sudden stratospheric warming, so a lot weaker with the zonal winds than they were, but nevertheless returning into a westerly phase. So that reversal of the zonal winds that occurred in the stratosphere is over, and we are seeing recovery beginning to take place now in the stratosphere. But of course, the question now is what happens in the troposphere. This is how the temperatures are being forecast to progress in the North Pole at 10 HPA in the stratosphere from the GFS model. This is the current situation. So we know it's a little bit colder on average now over the North Pole. That's indicated by these blue colours here that we have over the pole. Let's see what the GFS is forecasting to happen. And if anything, we see those temperatures becoming colder in the next week or so. So really quite a cold stratosphere indeed there over the North Pole as we go through into the start of February. Very little change, just getting colder around Greenland, if anything. So there's no sign of another sudden stratospheric warming this side of February, and probably into the first half of February either. Temperatures will continue to get colder and colder in the stratosphere over the North Pole. But again, this is probably helping to push that bubble of warmth down into the troposphere. So if you want a tropospheric response, you do actually want to see the stratosphere cooling down after a sudden stratospheric warming. So that's what we've got today. We have in terms of the stratosphere. This is how the CET is looking. This is the central England temperature from Hadley. This is provisional up to yesterday, 23rd of January. We're currently sitting at 4.7. An anomaly now of only 1.1 degrees above average. So this was running over a couple of degrees above average only a few days ago. It's coming down very quickly, this, and I suspect this will level off for the next 2 or 3 days, but then it'll start dropping again, I think, through the course of next week. So I reckon we're still on for a CET underneath 4 Celsius. I would suspect we're going to come out somewhere around 3.5 to let's say 3.9, somewhere in that area is where I think we're going to come out. That's primarily due to the fact that we're going to see this lowering even more through the course of next week, and I reckon we're going to get quite a big downwards correction as well. So I think it's going to come out underneath 4 degrees, and it probably won't be too far from the 61 to 90 average, but it may be a little bit colder actually now this month than the 81 to 2010 average. Obviously, we'll be keeping a very close eye on that. This is how the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts look from the Penn State University. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an area in the actual high pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. But let's extrapolate low pressure, red and orange to high pressure. So the ECM is placing a deep trough of below average heights over and to the south of the UK. The jet stream is digging a long way south as well. The jet stream's down there somewhere. We've got a ridge in the middle of the Atlantic, and then we've got some high pressure that's up towards Greenland as well. So it looks pretty cold on both sides of the Atlantic, really. We're digging cold air down into the eastern part of the States, and we're digging cold air down into the western side of Europe. In between, so we've got this area of high pressure that's in the central Atlantic and also around Greenland, and of course what we're looking for really is to generate a proper blocking feature. There's a lot of high pressure around the pole. We've got high pressure across western parts of Russia extending into the North Pole as well, so it probably wouldn't take all that much actually to generate a really big blocking feature somewhere over the North Pole and possibly around Greenland. Just a few more subtle adjustments are needed to do that, but certainly it isn't all that far away from it at all. As it is, that's pretty cold and wintry anyway. In the 7 to 10 day time frame, you will be putting down cold air into that trough of below average heights that we see there over and to the south of the UK. The GFS is very similar. So, again, it's got the low pressure into the east of America, so cold there. Then the jet comes out of America, then digs southwards like that. So, both sides of the Atlantic looking cold. We're under this trough of low pressure just here, and we will be pushing cold air down into that trough of low pressure, of course. Really big blocking feature sitting here just over toward the Pacific side, if anything, of the North Pole. So we need to extend that into Greenland, really. That's the one thing we're missing, Greenland blocking. If we was to get that, then we will probably go into quite a serious spell of cold weather, perhaps. Temperature anomalies are looking like this. I should say temperature and precipitation ensembles are looking like this. Looking at Preston Today, Preston in the north of England. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Preston. And it's going to be going a bit milder in the next couple of days. Friday and just for a while into Saturday will feel a bit milder, but after that the temperature on the slide again, going cold through the weekend and into next week. Quite a extended spell of colder than average conditions coming up. There are a few members of the ensemble who are going to the freezer now. So I've spoken about this before in videos. Going to the freezer, on this chart we need to be between -10 and -15 at 850 HPA. You see there are quite a few members now that are going down underneath -10. Maybe not quite a few, but there's a few of them that are going down under -10, 850 HPA, and that one really is going into the freeze. It's an outlier, of course, but that one is very, very cold, going down to around -15 and 850 HPA. As it is, it looks pretty cold anyway for the next few days. Once we get Friday and Saturday out of the way anyway, we're between -5 and -10 at 850 HPA. And I say some of these on some of the members are going down as low as -10 or even a bit lower, with that one well and truly into the freezer just there, but that's an outlier and unsettled as well. So plenty of precipitation spikes coming up, telling us it's going to be cold and unsettled, and there is an increasing risk of wintry potential by the look of it through the course of next week. Temperature anomalies. This is temperature anomalies. Temperature anomalies from the 24th of January to the 1st of February. A little bit colder than average for UK and Ireland. Scandinavia looking very cold. So below average temperatures in the week ahead. Precipitation anomalies looking rather unsettled for England and Wales, a little bit above average with precipitation there. Some northern parts of the country a little bit drier than average. This is how the GFS is looking for Sunday. We've got an area of low pressure on an active cold front clearing away eastwards on Sunday, and that's pulling down these cold northerly winds on Sunday. Into Monday, we're still looking cold with wind in from the north. And then as we go through into Tuesday, we bring a weather system in from off the Atlantic. That could bring rain, sleet or snow into the UK on Tuesday. And then behind it, the air is going colder again. So behind it, we're drawing out the air from kind of like Greenland, that sort of area, and pushing it down behind that weather system on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we start to move this area of low pressure in from off the Atlantic, and so that's pushing into cold air. The jet stream is down here, of course. The jet stream is on a northwest-southeast alignment, so there is wintry potential on Wednesday with that area of low pressure. That's a setup for Thursday next week, looking very, very interesting indeed. Two areas of low pressure now. There's a weather front that would be strung out, and in that sort of position to the south of that it's quite mild air, but we've got pushing into France. But behind it, very cold air is on the northern side of those areas of low pressure, and that's a classic sort of situation for a snow event. Obviously this is a week away, so those areas of low pressure could finish up further south than their position. They could finish up further north than their forecast position. But if they was to be in that kind of position that we see there on the 6 o'clock run of the GFS, then we would bring heavy snow in across places like Wales, the Midlands, Northern England. You'd expect real snow events there through the middle part of next week. Probably rain in the far south, and Scotland probably staying cold, frosty, with snow showers, those sort of conditions. But do bear in mind the position of those areas of low pressure could be further north or they could be further south. But again, it's just the idea that there's an increasingly wintry flavour within the model output at the moment to next week's weather. That's a situation on Friday the 1st of February. We start February on a cold note with low pressure just to our east. We're drawing in a northeasterly wind, and snow could be getting pretty widespread there at the end of next week. That low pressure clears away. We turn the wind into the north, bring snow showers across the country. Then we get towards day 10, and we're having a go at bringing more low pressure in from off the Atlantic into that cold air. So quite a snowy quite a snowy 6 o'clock run of the GFS, albeit there's no real northern blocking actually. There's no big sort of blocking feature, but there's certainly enough cold pushing out of the pole and out of Greenland, out of the North Atlantic, to be giving us the risk of some quite significant snow events through the course of next week. That's a little bit beyond day 10. Monday before the February takes that low pressure way to the southeast, pulling in a cold easterly wind, and then we start to build high pressure close to the country, so probably going dry, frosty and cold really before the winds return into the north again. So we're not talking about spectacular levels of northern blocking and severe freeze up type conditions, but certainly unsettled, certainly cold, and certainly an increasingly wintry flavour to the weather on the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. This is how the parallel 6 o'clock GFS run is looking. Again, the winds are in from the north over the weekend, so after a briefly milder interlude on Thursday, Friday and Saturday, tomorrow and Saturday, it gets colder after that. Into the early part of next week, again, we're drawing in these areas of low pressure into the country, but with cold air sinking around these areas of low pressure, giving us an increasingly, what looks like an increasingly wintry flavour to the weather through the course of next week. But of course, detail is to be determined on where any rain, snow divide is, but expect some surprises next week if these charts come off. Heading up towards day 10, and we start to pull in a cold north to northeasterly wind, so that's how we look at day 10, actually bringing wind in from the east and northeast. That would bring snow showers, particularly to England and Wales in the more extended range, so we keep it cold. We bring this area of low pressure in from off the Atlantic. That could be some sort of snow event taking place there. And then we get to the end of the parallel GFS run, which is Saturday the 9th of February, with low pressure sinking away to our south. Heights are rising around Greenland, and there is a very, very deep cold pool that's sitting just to our northeast over Scandinavia and back towards western Russia. If we are to get any kind of easterly wind there, then watch out. That's bringing severely cold air into the west of Europe. As it is, though, up to the 9th of February, there's no sign of anything severely cold, but cold enough for snow and just generally rather wintry from both the GFS operational and parallel runs this morning. This is UK Met Office model. So again, early next week, we've got the wind in from the north. Watch out for this area of low pressure to the south of Greenland. That starts to push southeastwards on Tuesday. Could bring some sort of rain, sleet or snow across the country. And then by the time we get through to Wednesday, we've got low pressure sitting to our east and south, turning the wind into a very cold north or northeasterly. And again, there would be snow opportunities with that from where that low pressure is just there on Tuesday, at midnight on Tuesday, to where the low pressure is at midnight on Wednesday across France. It's gone in that kind of direction, would have taken rain, snow across the country, and again, there is snow opportunities in with that. ECMWF is looking like this. So again, we've got cold northerly winds establishing over the country through to the start of next week, and then we find these areas of low pressure moving in from off the North Atlantic. Got low pressure just there on Tuesday. Another low pressure is around here. Everything is moving in that sort of direction. We're on the cold side, but jet, of course, the jet is down there somewhere. So we go through into the middle of next week. Again, we find these low pressures diving southwards and eastwards. The winds are turning into the north. You have to assume it as those low pressures are moving northwest southeast through the UK. There's an increasing risk of snow with them. Into the second half of next week, you get this area of low pressure developing down to the southwest of the country. So for a time, that might start to draw up some slightly less cold air from France. But then look where the low pressure goes. It actually digs into the Bay of Biscay, into France, and turns the wind into the east. That's bringing in cold easterlies to us. We finish up at day 10 on Sunday the 3rd of February, putting down a cold north or northeasterly wind. The detail is very much to be firmed up on through the course of next week. But if this is right, we have got an increasingly wintry flavour to the weather through the course of next week. This is how the ECM ensembles are looking via the postage stamps. At day 10, it's up from the Icelandic Met Office. At day 10, which is the 3rd of February, we've got 27 ensemble members, including the operational run, that has low pressure sinking away to our south. High pressure is up to the north, and they're pulling in cold north or possibly northeasterly winds. There's another 13 that has a slightly, and it includes a control run as well, by the way, has a slightly stronger blocking signal up to the north. Low pressure over to the south of the UK. These ones again pulling in cold east or northeasterly winds. There's 6 that again has quite a strong northern blocking signal to our north and to our east. Low pressure is a little bit more to the southwest. So these, despite the blocking signal, could be bringing up some slightly less cold air or slightly milder air from the southwest. And then there's a further 5 that have more of a mid-Atlantic ridge, so they've got high pressure through there, but they do extend it up to the north with low pressure down there. They're still pretty cold, bringing in the wind from the northeast direction. So again, I think the ECM ensembles by day 10 have trended in a colder direction today, a colder and more wintry direction. And this is the setup in 2 weeks' time at 360 hours. These are the options that are on the table within the ECM ensembles. This is for the 8th of February. So we've got 22 ensemble members that have a Scandinavian high, area of high pressure over Scandinavia, extended into the middle of the Atlantic. Low pressure to the south. They're pulling in bitterly cold, or would be putting in bitterly cold easterly winds. There's a further 17 that again has very strong northern blocking. High pressure is stretched out from Greenland over towards Scandinavia. It includes a control as well, by the way, with low pressure to our south. Again, these would be pulling in cold easterly winds. And then there's a minority option, 12, that has low pressure centred over to the west of the UK. They do have a bit of northern blocking, but they're a milder option. They're bringing in the wind from off the Atlantic with those 12. But I think the ECM ensembles, along with the GFS ensembles, are all trending in a colder direction here as we move into the early part of February. The CFS V2 is also looking cold for February. This is 700 millibar height anomaly for February. Strong blocking signal up to the north of the country. Low pressure is to over to the south of the country. Again, you'd expect to be pulling in cold east or northeasterly winds. With that, temperature anomalies are being forecast to be colder than average for much of northern Europe, the UK and Ireland is included during February. And also a bit above average with precipitation. So you see where the drier conditions are, where the high pressure is going to be. Very dry month for Norway and northern parts of Scandinavia. So there's lots of high pressure going on up here. But to the south, it's wetter than average for England and Wales. Drier than average Scotland, but wetter than average for England, Wales and Ireland. And looking very wet through France, Spain, Portugal into the Mediterranean. This is indicative of a southerly tracking jet stream, taking areas of low pressure into southern Europe, forced southwards by all of the northern blocking that we've got going on up here, which would of course be bringing in easterly winds. So I did the JMA 3 monthly seasonal update as today's first video, and February looks like it actually develops something of a reverse zonal flow for the northern part of the Atlantic and northern Europe and North America. Looks like we pull the winds in from the east in a reversal of the zonal flow during February, and I think the CFS is kind of like hinting at that a little bit as well. So potentially very cold conditions, very cold month for northern parts of Europe. Of course, that's very speculative. Have to wait and see how that plays out. But the indications are there from the long-range output that there's plenty more this winter still to go. Right, that's brought you up to date with all of the latest developments. Tomorrow we've got JMA Friday, of course. That's your month-ahead look ahead with the Japanese and CFS V2 models. And also tomorrow we'll have your regular week 10-day video update as well. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.